a look at these menus, the visuals you see, the sounds they make. For a certain generation of people, this right here is like crack, but if crack was legal, significantly healthier and came on a cool black CD. These right here are PlayStation demo discs, specifically PlayStation demo discs released in PAL regions. If you're from North America, they might look like this, or that, or these, or those, or other various words that I say in a weird way. What about Japanese demo discs? These are pretty cool too. They also have proto Banjo-Kazooie nuts and bolts in these things, which is kind of weird. For a lot of you, if you had a PlayStation in the 90s or early noughties, demo discs felt like an integral part of the PlayStation experience. Of course, demo discs and shareware existed long before the PlayStation, and it existed long after it too. There was even a whole demo scene, which is like a demo but with the word scene after it. But why did this particular console and era of demo discs feel so different, so magical, so psychedelic? Well, it's a lot of things really. The PlayStation happened to exist just at the right time to mimic all the cool music and visual trends that were prevalent across the globe. It's why almost every European PlayStation game has a soundtrack that sounds like this. And if you picked up a copy of PlayStation Official Magazine, it wasn't unusual to read about what nightclubs in your area featured PlayStations in them, or interviews with Aphex Twin about playing Tekken. That was just the times we lived in, and demo discs were essentially a way to microdose the PlayStation experience, the new and exciting world of 3D, all this new tech, all this visual flair, all these games neatly packed into one little disc. And I think the fact PS1 demo discs have maintained this allure and reverence over the years, not only from people who were there at the time, but even via newcomers to the console nowadays, is a testament to the power of the PlayStation's vibe. Like, no console has a vibe like the PS1, and no console has the ability to raise a humble demo disc to legendary status like the PS1 does. I mean, I never grew up with the Pizza Hut demo disc, but the way people talk about this thing, it's almost like it's an ancient tome that people worship on an altar. And look, after seeing this kid whip out an exaggerated New York accent and down some pizza, I completely get it.
The slices were so big you have to fold them. And they were dripping with cheese and the sauce and the thing.
Steve, you're only 15. You've never left Wisconsin.
But the cheese and the folding and...
No.
Now, ever since I started making videos here on YouTube almost 5 years ago, I always knew I wanted to make a video about PlayStation demo discs. I wasn't sure what that video was gonna be exactly. I simply wrote the words demo onto a piece of paper and it was basically set in stone from there. There's just so many cool and interesting things about demo discs. I mean, beyond the aesthetic and presentation of the PAL discs to the cool insider videos and Japanese playtests in the PlayStation Underground discs, or the almost endless and incredibly creative range of Japanese discs where you'll come across games you've never heard about in your life and then immediately can't live without. And of course, there's Net Eurozzy, a whole project that allowed people to order their very own super cool black PlayStation, which they could then use alongside a PC to develop games themselves at home. Games that could then be downloaded from the internet or released in full on demo discs, giving the PlayStation its own indie distribution system all the way back in the 90s, which is still pretty incredible. And there's a lot of Net Eurozzy games out there too. And look, I know PS1 style horror is all the rage these days in indie games, but you should see some of the stuff people were developing for Eurozzy back in the day. It is honestly incredibly unsettling.
Out. 1, 2. 1.
Net Eurozzy. It's not for freaks, we promise. So yeah, after doing a bit of research into PlayStation demo discs, I quickly learned that the console's demo scene is so wild and varied that it has more interesting topics to cover than some game consoles have in its entirety. And the idea of covering all this cool demo stuff in one video, not really possible, I'm afraid, unless you want me to make a 15-hour video or something. I know some of you would like that, but I do also want to avoid killing myself, so we're going to keep it light and breezy and instead space out all the fun demo topics for future videos. And since I was born and bred in the wild and mystical lands of Ireland where it's cold all the time and we have feuding crisp mascots, there's one demo that I feel stands out as the perfect starting point. A demo I think is near and dear to everybody who suffers the 50Hz curse. A demo I would consider the king of demos, the Smitty Werben Jaegerman Jensen of demos, if you will. And when I think about it, possibly the single most influential piece of gaming media I have ever played in my life. Well, one of them is anyway. There's like 7 different versions of this thing. It gets very confusing. That's right, we're talking about Demo 1, the iconic pack-in disc included with PlayStation consoles sold in PAL regions, which, if you don't know by now, is most of Europe and also Australia and New Zealand, who we love very much. Now, 7 different versions of this disc exist, dating from the console's PAL launch in 1995 up until 1998, when the final revision of this disc was released. And depending on when you first got your PlayStation back in the day, assuming you were alive back then and also lived in a PAL country, one of these 7 discs was about to worm its way into your brain, never to escape. And since I enjoy igniting nostalgia in as many people as possible and making editor me suffer down the line, we'll of course be looking at all 7 of these discs in order of release. Every game, every video, every opening, every tech demo, and of course every cool menu contained within. And if you're a newcomer to the console or have just never had the full PAL 50Hz experience, well, you might see why the PlayStation, and these discs in particular, managed to capture our hearts or just freak us out so much that we never forgot them. Probably a little bit of both. Now, one last thing before we begin. In spite of there being 7 versions of this disc, they are generally split into 3 distinct eras. Era 1 comprises of version 1 and 2, Era 2 comprises of version 3, 4, and 5, and Era 3 comprises of versions 6 and 7. Which of these is the best? Well, it's the one you owned when you first got your console, obviously, but we'll probably be able to objectively decide that too, true reasoning and logic, and also how cool I think the music is, but we'll get to all that in time. Anyway, let's kick things off at the very beginning with one of the most important demo discs of all time, 1995's Demo 1, number 1. My god, look at all those flashing lights. This is the future, ladies and gentlemen. This is seizure warnings. But in all seriousness though, this OG Demo 1 menu and aesthetic I lovingly call the flashing lights era, since everything here is kind of light based in some way, shape or form. We got spotlights in the menus, some of the selectable options are lights. We got a lot of lights, and when you hear the music you also begin to understand why. And to introduce that, we have to show off probably the most memorable part of the OG Demo 1 disc, the opening movie, which if you haven't seen before, is a real treat. That whole thing just there is what I like to call EU PlayStation propaganda. Essentially, videos of gameplay, cool images, buzzwords, and banging music being blasted into your eyeballs. Something the EU side of Sony would pretty much perfect throughout the console's life cycle. Some examples include the Blown Away promo videos, which are classics. and this video, which played at the beginning of some European demos from 1999 onwards. Like, this stuff is crazy, but it was an incredibly effective way of getting you to remember Sony, because you see stuff like this, it sticks with you. And for Sony to basically blast you at this as soon as you get your new console, they were locking you in. And look, for many of you out there, this version of the Demo 1 opening might not be the one that you're familiar with, as this video does return a little bit later with a brand new song that I do think personally is vastly superior. Not to shade on the original track, it is still a banger, and it will also play throughout the demo's menus, so you will learn to love it either way. Also, each demo loves flashing the Demo 1 logo at you in between games, and I've always loved this original version of the logo, which they use nowhere on the packaging, but I still think is pretty cool and mysterious. And speaking of the packaging, it is a bit fancier than some of the later Demo 1 discs we'll see, and I think it's meant to represent what's going on inside the console with all the circuitry and big start processor. And to be honest, rarely does a PlayStation item feel so much like an important artifact in a way. This is probably how Americans feel about the Pizza Hut demo disc. Like, this is an important piece of PAL PlayStation history right here, and I actually treasure it quite a bit. It's got a gatefold cover, and inside you get a list of customer hotline numbers and also a list of contents included on the disc, which looks very nice. And speaking of the disc, it also looks quite nice, sporting a tan brownish color, which is very 1995 and also unique to this version. Now, I should mention this is the UK variant of this disc. Yes, each version also has its own variants, although generally the only variant that features any notable differences are the German versions, which, due to their very strict rating system at the time, meant that if any of the games included featured human-on-human violence, these games were often just removed from the German versions entirely, including 2 of the 4 playable games featured on the version we'll be looking at today. I'll let you guess which 2 games it is after we've seen them in action. Anyway, here we are in the main menu where we can see the 4 options available: Games, VCD, Preview, and Tech. We'll check out VCD and Tech last since they're kind of their own thing, but for now, let's start out where most people would: the games. This demo features 4 playable games, them being Wipeout, Loaded, Destruction Derby, and Battle Arena Toshinden. A heavy hitter roster of early console favorites, probably no doubt due to their inclusion in this disc. I mean, all 4 of these games would eventually get platinum releases due to selling at least 400,000 copies each, so they definitely had an impact. You might have also noticed Total NBA's inclusion in this list, which oddly isn't listed as a playable game on the case, and that's because it really isn't. You'll see in a bit. For now, let's dive into what I would play first if I was me in 1995, and that's Wipeout. Every game gets its own little menu with a screenshot and also a menu that explains the game's controls, and the most important thing you should glean from this is that you should never ever press the select button in a demo. Anyway, here's Wipeout, Psygnosis and Sony's big PAL region launch title and one of the console's most iconic series. This demo is pretty short and sweet, dropping you straight into a single lap around the game's opening track, Ultima 7. These earlier demos aren't that generous content-wise, but if you wanted to get a glimpse of what the PlayStation was capable of back in 1995, I can think of few better games to do that with than Wipeout. I mean, even the way the game looks and sounds, there's something really quite timeless about this original.
Rocket.
Once you finish your lap, you can watch a replay if you like, and there you go. That's Wipeout. That probably didn't seem like a lot, but from my own experience, if you had a demo disc, you tended to play these things quite a bit. So this one lap of Wipeout, I would have been playing over and over and over again, just like any of the other games on this disc. And speaking of which, here's Battle Arena Toshinden from Tamsoft and Takara, a game that is also synonymous with the early days of the console, before Tekken came in and stole all its thunder. At least it features heavily in the opening video though, so that's nice. The demo lets you play a single round against a CPU or friend, and you have 3 of the 8 total characters available to select from, which is quite generous. As for the gameplay, well, it's Toshinden, and PAL Toshinden at that, but for an early 3D fighter, it's still a lot better than most of the early 3D fighters, and hey, simply looking this good was enough to sell most people on it at the time, although I will say the CPU AI in this demo is very, very mean, which was kind of the thing in fighting games back then, but man does this demo make me feel like I suck at Toshinden, and I mean it is true, but they don't need to drive it home so hard. And speaking of driving hard, next up we have Destruction Derby, or Destruction Derby as me and all my friends used to call it, because the English language is weird and I will gladly butcher it at every possible opportunity. Another early Psygnosis release from developer Reflections, and another game series that would become a mainstay on the console. It was rare to find somebody who didn't own at least one Destruction Derby game, and look, while the game is known for its racing to an extent, which was serviceable at the time, the thing I always loved about this series was the Destruction Derby mode, where you get plopped into an arena with a bunch of other cars and just go to town on each other for points. And smartly, this demo is exactly that. It's just 90 seconds of pure fun, and beyond that, the music, graphics, and sheer number of cars on screen is also sure to impress. Honestly, I think this demo, content-wise, this is probably the smartest and most impressive of the demos included on this disc, and it's also the first of the games to give us a little PowerPoint presentation at the end, hyping up what was available in the full release, which I always get a kick out of. And lastly, the final playable game on this disc is Loaded from Gremlin Interactive, a top-down shooter about crazy people shooting other crazy people, and a game I'm always happy to play. Now, unlike the other games on this disc, which very much felt like their retail counterparts, there is some beta stuff included in this version of Loaded, like an older variant of the logo and a much more basic character select screen versus what we'd see in the final release, and we get to play as one character in this demo, the big giant baby man called Mama. Honestly, if you've never played Loaded before, this might seem quite strange, and that's because it is. You get to play the entirety of the game's first level, which makes it by far the most content-rich of all the demos. I mean, it is just wandering a maze, finding keycards and obliterating dudes, but it's a good time. Although a few other notable changes from the retail release are that bombs haven't been added to the game yet, also the very prominent bloodstains of the original are absent and replaced with grey sweat, which, considering this disc was for all ages, makes a lot of sense. And also the music in this level is different from the retail release, which is a shame because the retail version of this level is so damn good. So yeah, those were the 4 games everybody who got a PlayStation at launch got to try. They pretty much followed the early 3D gaming formula of focusing heavily on racing and fighting games, since those tended to impress the easiest, but even then Loaded still has a good showing here, showcasing the console's fancy effects and audio. If I had to pick just one of these games to get after playing them, it would probably be Wipeout. It just felt the most next-gen and futuristic of the games, and look, I just can't resist some banging tunes and anti-grav racing. I'm only human after all. And yeah, the German versions of this disc lacked Loaded and Toshinden, for those wondering. Yeah, not even the grey blood sweat could save Loaded over there, sadly. But what about Total NBA, I hear you ask? Well, here it is. It's essentially an in-engine basketball game that you can watch from a whole bunch of different angles. So not quite a playable demo, but also technically a playable demo. Does it look impressive for the time? Sure. Is it basketball? Definitely. I just wish I could play it. Now, for those unaware, Total NBA, or NBA Shootout as it was known in North America, was Sony's, at the time, first-party NBA series. You know, back when multiple companies could make officially licensed sports games, and the whole genre was better off for it. This series was actually developed in Europe and was also quite popular over here too, and I've always had a soft spot for the 97 edition of this series because it comes in one of the funnest cases I have ever seen. I mean, basketball texture on a case. What a concept. Anyway, moving on from that, let's check out the video previews that are meant to entice us into buying stuff, of which we have 7, showcasing a nice mixture of games from Sony's North American and Japanese partners. First up, we have Tekken, the Namco classic that started it all, and it's just a simple video showcasing a fight between Yoshimitsu and King. And look, the first Tekken was one of the games I got with my original PlayStation back in the day, so even though it's pretty basic by today's standards, I still have a lot of love for this entry, especially the way that it looks and sounds. And hey, if you want to sell people on Tekken, there's no better stage than King George Island. I mean, what a bop.
Yoshimitsu wins. Round 2. Fight.
Next up, we have Warhawk from Sony and Single Track, which was one of the leading North American releases for the console's launch, and honestly didn't really make a very big splash over here in Europe. In fact, the first I'd ever even heard of this series was through the PS3 reimagining like 10 years later, which was a pretty fun online game actually. And you know what? This video kind of makes Warhawk look pretty damn sweet. I didn't realize it was as video gamey as it seems to be. I mean, any footage of this game I've seen in the past always seems to feature the early levels, and look, after playing it a bit myself, I understand why, because it's pretty damn hard. But yeah, if you've never tried Warhawk and like arcadey flight games, it is quite impressive for an early release, I gotta say. Next up, and also from Single Track and Sony, we have Twisted Metal, the first in what would go on to be a very long-running series from Sony, and also a TV series featuring Samoa Joe as a demon clown driving an ice cream truck. See? The world ain't all bad. This is the game that pretty much kickstarted the whole vehicular combat craze on consoles, and while this OG version is pretty basic compared to the latter entries, the core gameplay is still here intact from the very start, and there's a lot of content too. In fact, I never knew you could access this first-person view in the original. Is it the best way to play the game? Probably not, but I sure do like that it's here. Next up, we have the wonderful Rapid Reload, aka Gunner's Heaven, over in Japan. This game is basically What If Gunstar Heroes, but developed by the Wild Arms team, and I mean, that's pretty much all you need to sell it. Sadly, this game never made it to North America, as it was a 2D game, and a guy in a business suit thought it made the console look weak, and you didn't want to play it, so there you go. That being said, not the most exciting preview video of the game here, but take my word for it, it is pretty damn good, so do try and check it out. Next up, we have Ridge Racer.
Remember that one?
You know, you might think this would get a playable demo, but Ridge Racer really was the killer app for the console during its early days, so you can't be giving too much away now, especially seeing as the game has like 2 tracks in it. But hey, let's ignore that instead and enjoy a single lap of gameplay and music, which we all love to see. After that, we have a video of Jumping Flash from Sony and developer Exact, and probably my personal favorite of the early Sony titles on the console, just down to how experimental and fun this game is to play. A first-person platformer that really plays like nothing else out there, even to this day, and surprisingly it just all works really, really well. It also has a frog wearing a top hat, and I think we can all agree that's very important. And last up, we have a video of Starblade Alpha, an enhanced PlayStation port of Namco's arcade hit Starblade. Now I say enhanced port, but the PlayStation port of this game is probably one of the weaker versions of the game out there, and even by then, CGI FMV style games weren't really wowing in the same way the other big 3D releases were. But hey, if you like shooting stuff in space, you can still certainly do a lot worse than this thing.
Located enemy flagship commander. Pursue and engage.
Geosword, come in, Geosword. This is...
All in all, if I was to pick one game to get from all of this, I'd say the Warhawk video was probably the best at selling me on the game, since many of the other videos were just unedited clips of gameplay, and at least Warhawk was trying to give me a bit of the old razzle dazzle. So whoever edited together the Warhawk and Twisted Metal previews, congrats, you did good work. Anyway, that's the games and preview portions out of the way, but we still have two options left to check on the main menu, and for me, these are very important, if not more so than the games themselves. First up, we have the wonderful VCD, which was a piece of software from Psygnosis, yes, the L people, that was included in most versions of Demo 1, and basically acted as a visualizer for your music CDs. And since, you know, the PlayStation is kind of known for being a good CD player, I mean, why the hell not have a great visualizer to go along with it? And thanks to Demo 1, you had one included in the box with your console. And while other games also feature similar visualizers, this one is one of the best you can get on the console. There's just so many cool and psychedelic options available that if I was ever going to go to the effort of using my console to play music, well, these visualizers would always accompany it. In fact, I'm checking it out here today in the best possible way by using the music album, Music for PlayStation, which funnily enough also comes with a demo disc complete with its own exclusive visuals too, and quite a lineup of games, I may add. For me, music is just synonymous with this console, from the incredibly varied soundtracks of its games to its audio capabilities to just shit like this. I mean, what a fun little inclusion, and one that still holds up as one of the better visualizers you can access today. And finally, last but certainly not least, we have the tech menu, which houses two of the most iconic pieces of PlayStation media out there. Them, of course, being Dinosaur and Manta Ray. These were both demos used to showcase the PlayStation's real-time graphical and rendering capabilities, both at trade shows and developer conferences. And while these appear in plenty of early PlayStation promo videos, the fact they were added here as playable additions, I really can't stress enough how memorable and impactful these were, even for just a lowly kid like myself playing them for the first time. I mean, all you can really do is move a camera around and press some buttons to make the creatures react, and while I didn't appreciate how impressive this was, considering both of these tech demos were from 1994 because, you know, I was just a dumb kid, there was something just captivating about the vibe these tech demos gave off, and a huge part of that is the music and emptiness of these demos. Like, the Dinosaur tech demo has this imposing droney beat in the background, and the image of the dinosaur just walking in black empty space, just smiling and staring back at me through the screen. I mean, that shit just speaks to me, you know? And then there's the Manta Ray moving gently through the ocean with all these fish moving around it to another calming but also eerily haunting melody. I'm sure these were added just to let people get a taste of what was being shown off during the console's promotional days, but both of these unsuspecting things seem to linger on long in the memories of those who have tried them. There's something just captivating about each of them, and they'd not only go on to be highlights of most Demo 1 discs, but iconic pieces of gaming history in their own right. I mean, I got off my seat when the dinosaur showed up in Astrobot. Like, this is respecting your history, right? But also just really fun. So yeah, that's a look at the complete Demo 1 package back in 1995. And look, while its aesthetic and the quality of the games and previews included here might not be up to later demo disc standards, there was really nothing else like this at the time.
Sure, North America got PlayStation picks and Japan had Demo Volume 1, and content-wise these are pretty similar, but neither had the riz this demo had. And because it was a pack-in,
everybody who got the console was immediately aware of Wipeout, Toshinden, dinosaurs, manta rays, trippy visualizers, all that good stuff. You know, whatever you thought of the PlayStation and its games, its brand identity had already been injected into your eyeballs. And this is something Sony would only hone and enhance as the years went by, although not immediately, as the next Demo 1 certainly looks a lot like the first Demo 1, only slightly bigger and slightly better. Well, here it is, Demo 1 version 2, which is pretty much the exact same as the last disc, only it has a bit more stuff. There's a few revisions of Demo 1 that follow this formula, aka the same as last time, but better. But this one does have some fun inclusions of its own, and they upgraded the packaging somewhat, so that's nice. The packaging this time is just a bigger and more refined version of the previous edition, and we also have a nice orange disc this time around. By the way, if you wanted to tell the differences between these discs, the answer is to always look at the serial number labeled on every PlayStation disc, and even more helpful, there's also a great website that lists pretty much all the PAL demo discs, their contents, and the serial numbers for each. So if you ever want to hunt down an exact demo disc you had as a kid, well, this website has got you covered, and I'll link it in the video description below. Although probably my favorite thing about this disc, and this is really quite cute, the version I have here has a bunch of handwritten notes and cheats from one of the previous owners, and this stuff is just so nostalgic and sweet. Remember how big cheats were during this era? I mean, I had so many cheat books, and they would legit get you so much extra mileage out of your games as a kid. I really can't believe how hard they fell off, but I'll always love this stuff. Well, all these notes here were written to somebody named Jenny from Gemma. I don't know if they're friends or family or whatever, but this is just so sweet. Like, the likeliness of either of you being out there and remembering this stuff, let alone watching this video, is incredibly low. But I just want to say I appreciate you both, and I also dig the groovy chick drawing. It just makes it even more of a throwback. Anyway, here we are inside the disc, and everything included in the last demo, the tech demos, the VCD, even the games and videos, they're still all here. Only now we have a few additional games and videos to check out. And when it comes to demos, more is always better. So let's see what's new. First off, we now have a playable version of Jumping Flash, which lets us check out a full level of the game and also the first boss fight, which seems like a lot, but Jumping Flash is a pretty short game, so it's still a short but sweet demo, and it is enough to let you get used to the controls and gameplay here. And I mean, once you get the hang of things, Jumping Flash is hard not to love, so its inclusion here is great to see. I'll tell you what's not great to see though, Nova Storm by Psygnosis, which was originally a 3DO and Sega CD title, now jazzed up for the PlayStation. And when I originally played the full version of this for a video looking at every Psygnosis PlayStation game, I thought this was maybe the single worst game that they put out on the console, and this demo here certainly brought all that back to me real quick. I mean, I quite like the way it looks and sounds since I'm fond of the FMV CGI style, but the gameplay and hard difficulty just does not equate to a fun time for me, and this is maybe the only case of one of these discs featuring a demo that I actively disliked. Maybe try it for yourself and see what you think, but for me, Nova Storm is a big no-no.
Energy low. Energy low.
Something that pleasantly surprised me, however, is ESPN Extreme Games, another game I often associate with the North American launch window, and a game you might also know as One Extreme after the ESPN license expired and they reissued the game without it. This is a pretty straightforward racing game in the vein of Road Rash or Skitchin, with a few tricks and gimmicks added in. It honestly feels like a souped up 16-bit game, but just with some fancy 3D graphics added in, and honestly it's pretty fun. If you like murdering people by kicking them in the head while they go at high speeds, well then you will certainly get a kick out of this. It also lasts like 5 minutes too, which is about double the length of the other racers so far, so That's pretty cool. As for the videos, I feel the additions here are certainly nice, but none of them feature any gameplay, so they are kinda throwaway additions in my opinion. First up, we have Air Combat from Namco, aka the first Ace Combat, a really fun arcadey flight game, but you might not know that because this video is just planes flying around to some fun music. Cool, but not exactly what I'm looking for in a preview video for a game. Also, the video then just swaps over to the Air Combat menu and then sticks around here for a bit, which is quite odd. After this, we have the addition of two new Psygnosis games, the first of which is Assault Rigs, which I've covered a fair bit now over the years, and I think is one of the more underappreciated games to make it to the console. It's basically a virtual reality tank platformer with great music, and while the video included in the demo doesn't show off any gameplay, the video does certainly seem to show a virtual reality tank platformer with great music, so I can't really fault that. And finally, we have a video for Crazy Ivan, a mech game where you play as a bunch of funny Russians, and it also has some great live action cutscenes. The video included in this demo shows none of them sadly, but you do learn it's a mech game and it has some Russian in it, so yeah, there you go. And that's Demo 1 version 2, a slightly better version of the first, simply by having more stuff. But you also see they were still figuring out how to really make the perfect demo, or even the perfect preview video. But this one I think does give you a good overview of what the PlayStation experience and push was like during 1995 and early 1996. And speaking of 96, it wouldn't be long until the third version of Demo 1 would make an appearance and also usher in what is easily my favorite era of the disc, and probably yours too. Ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce you to the cool as shit era of Demo 1, which from my own experience is probably the era most people associate with Demo 1, and this would last from 1996 until 1997 over the course of 3 discs. Now this first disc, version 3, is actually one of the rarer Demo 1 variants out there. I legit could not find a single version of this disc with a case online, and according to the Demo Pals website, it came in the same style gatefold cover used in version 2, only now with a mysterious black disc. Ooh, these aren't actually very exciting. Most demo discs would look like this in the future, but once you boot the disc up, things are certainly a bit different. You see this here, this menu, this song, this logo? This is exactly what I think of when I think of the PlayStation. This opening and the track used here, this is the PlayStation song. I know the PlayStation doesn't have a song, but if it did, this is the song for me. Both the original Demo 1 track and this new version included here were both composed by a fella named Harry Homewood, and I can't even begin to tell you what it was like seeing and hearing this opening when booting it up for the first time. It was like it fundamentally changed the way my brain worked, and I still get goosebumps when watching this thing. And from there, it only gets better because the design and aesthetic changes that they've made here I still think this is maybe the coolest menu screen I have ever seen. Even the font they use for the Demo 1 logo, it looks like it is straight out of another planet. And then you actually get into the menus. These two are just incredible, so sleek, so futuristic, abstract and trippy, all the while this banger of a track is playing in the background. It all just makes me so happy. It's like I said, the perfect encapsulation of how I view the PlayStation. It was all just the coolest shit I had ever seen, and while I didn't really think about it at the time, this here was the genesis of me thinking about design as a language and how it can speak to people. I know it's crazy to say this about what is essentially just some Sony marketing material, but I really don't think I'm alone in feeling this way. Maybe it just had to be there, maybe it's just good old nostalgia clouding my vision, but this demo, the way it looks and the way it sounds, I still don't think there's been anything cooler. And you know what? That's just the menus. We still have all the good stuff from the previous demos like the Manta and T-Rex, which, come on, you gotta have. And of course, the VCD, now just jazzed up with even cooler menus and visuals, which we love to see. But when it comes to the games and the videos contained within, this is a different story, because while this disc looks and feels like the Demo 1 I experienced as a kid, the games included within are completely different. So while all this cool menu stuff resonates with me on a level that's hard to even explain, the game demos, you know, the main reason you should be even playing this thing, I'm trying most of these here today for the first time, so let's see what the wild world of 1996 has in store for us. First up, we have Ridge Racer Revolution, the second Ridge Racer game on the console, and it's a lot like the first, but with more stuff in it. Still not a lot of stuff, but honestly, it's not hard to beat the original Ridge Racer in a stuff competition, and this demo even lets you try out the Namco loading screen minigame at the start. Well, a short demo of it. That's right, a demo within a demo. What a time to be alive. This here is another short but sweet one, giving us only a single lap with no car or track selection, but a single lap is all you really need to soak in the music and visuals and hopefully get to grips with the drift mechanic. I swear, I play this game like once a year and it always takes me a few minutes to remember how to play it, but still, if you like arcadey racing games on the PlayStation, ain't much better you can do in 96 than Ridge Racer Revolution, that's for sure. After that, we got the sequel to a hit launch title, and that's Battle Arena Toshinden 2, which at least from my recollection was the most popular of the Toshinden games in my circle of pals, which is to say one of us owned it, so we played it a whole bunch. It's very much like the first Toshinden demo with 3 playable characters. This time we have Sophia, Foe, and newcomer Chaos, and it's pretty much just an enhanced version of the original game, but with better gameplay, graphics, and an expanded moves list. And I would go as far as to say that it was probably the best 3D fighter on the console at the time, if, you know, Tekken 2 didn't exist. And speaking of which, here's Tekken 2. Honestly, I feel kinda bad for Toshinden 2. It mustn't be nice to go head to head with Tekken 2 on the very same disc. At least they didn't include the whole Tekken 2 opening to add insult to injury. Oh wait, no, they did. Oh man, it's just such good shit. So here's Tekken 2, the highly successful, highly beloved follow-up to the original, and this demo here is another pretty generous one. It only lets you select between 2 characters, those being Lei and Jun, but you do get to go 2 full rounds against a random opponent and on a random stage, so there's quite a lot to see here, and it's one of those demos that does kick you back to the game's title screen instead of the demo game selection, so you can keep on practicing as much as you like, and the game even shows off some other characters in attract mode too, which is quite nice. The only issue I have with this demo is that it lacks background music during the fights, which is a real shame because Tekken 2 music is goated, but hey, if it means we get the full opening included on the disc, it is a price I'm willing to pay. After this, we have Descent from Parallax Software, a game I don't normally associate with the PlayStation, seeing as it is a 6 degrees of freedom FPS, which basically means it's a first-person shooter, but you can fly and rotate and go anywhere you like, which, you know, would definitely suit a mouse and keyboard better, I think. But honestly, I gotta say, I was surprised by how nice this game feels to control on a PlayStation pad, and it performed pretty well too. It even has an FPS counter over in the corner, which is a nice addition for the freaks. Yeah, a pretty fun demo overall actually. Plays well, looks nice, music is good, you save little dudes. I mean, what more could you want? 2 thumbs up from me. And sticking on the FPS train, next up we have Alien Trilogy from Probe Software, which I recall was another pretty big hit back in the day. Now, I never owned this game, but I did have friends with both PlayStation and Saturns who had this thing, so I played it a whole bunch as a kid, and let me tell you, it was very scary and very difficult. It's a little less scary nowadays, especially if you've played some of the other Alien games, but it is still quite difficult and more old school than a lot of the FPS games that would make it onto the console, especially if you're dumb like me and waste all your ammo very quickly into the demo, and also didn't find the shotgun. Seriously, I really needed that shotgun. That being said, there's still a really nice atmosphere to this thing, which is mostly down to all the classic Alien sound effects and this game's excellent soundtrack. And hey, if you like old FPS games and Alien, between this and the also quite good Alien Resurrection, the PS1 has got you covered. And finally, rounding out the games on this disc, we have 2 sports titles, which I know is very exciting. First up, we have Adidas Power Soccer from Psygnosis, a game I played a few times over the years, and it's a serviceable arcadey style football game, and one that was pretty impressive for its day, but noticeably less impressive nowadays due to some kind of awkward controls. But hey, it's Europe, and football games were, and still are to this day, big sellers, so appearing on a packing disc certainly must have given this game a leg up against the competition. And hey, it's another game that would go on to be a platinum seller, so clearly it did something right. And last, for something a little bit different, we have a game from the very popular Actua Sports series from Gremlin. You know, the Loaded guys, and that's Actua Golf. Now, as I've said before many times, I'm not generally a sports guy, and of all sports, golf is pretty low down in the list of my favorites, but as a video game, golf is very high up on my list of favorites, and Actua Golf was the game that kicked off that love. Well, not this one, the second entry in the series, but this first game is very similar, and a lot of what I liked about that entry is also present here. It's just a competent, well put together and very relaxing golf game. It kind of combines the arcadey gameplay of something like Everybody's Golf, but just adds that little bit of realistic flair to it. So, you know, normal golfing folks would enjoy it. This is also my dad's favorite series, by the way. He almost definitely isn't watching this video, but shout out to my dad, the Actua Golf King, also the Wii Golf King and the Everybody's Golf King. He's just really good at golf games.
This par 4 dogleg 11th hole at River Valley is 454 yards and offers a great challenge. It's a flat fairway, but it's separated from the green by a stream with a large bunker sitting to the right and at the very end of its length.
So that's it for the games on this disc, which once again might not seem like the most exciting roster of games when you consider the entire PlayStation library, but these do represent, in my mind, some of the biggest hits here in Europe around this time period, and these are games that I would often see in friends' collections and on shelves all throughout this generation, so I've no doubt this demo certainly boosted their appeal. If I had to pick one game from this roster to buy, it would probably be Tekken 2, but assuming I didn't already own Tekken 2, which, let's be fair, everybody did back then, I did legitimately quite enjoy that Descent demo, so I'll give that my pick. Although, what about the preview videos, or as they're now known on this disc, movies? Well, oddly, we don't have any game videos this time around, but we do have a trailer for the 95 Sandra Bullock thriller, The Net, which is coming to VHS soon. I'm glad they told me, or else I wouldn't have found out otherwise. The Net does for computers what Psycho did for showers. What does that even mean?
The disc and we'll give you your life back.
She has the evidence.
She's copied the disc.
Clever girl.
But they have the power. Sandra Bullock is caught in the net.
2 months ago, I saw a provocative movie on cable TV. It was called The Net, with that girl from the bus.
Anyway, that's been a look at Demo 1 version 3, which beyond the games and Sandra Bullock, the most important thing this disc introduced was its style and aesthetic. Many demos over the years would capture people's hearts and minds due to their overwhelming presentation and UI, but none I feel are as impactful or legendary in the PAL sphere than what this demo first brought to the table. And good news, we're going to be seeing it for a little while yet. That's right, it's version 4 of Demo 1, and just like the last edition, it features the exact same layout and also seems to be one of the less common Demo 1 variants, which is quite the shame because this one comes in a standard PlayStation PAL case, which is kinda cool for a demo, and similar to our last even-numbered version of Demo 1, this is just a beefed-up version of the last disc, including all the same games, sans Alien Trilogy sadly, but when you see what they added in its stead, you can't be too mad. First up, we have the PlayStation icon himself, Crash Bandicoot, here with his original 1996 debut, now in demo form. You get to play through the entirety of one of the game's opening levels, and I mean, compared to everything else coming out on the console around this time, Crash really is a stunner. It looks as good as something from the late 90s era of the console, and don't forget this was still the period when Animal or Italian-based platforming mascots were what sold consoles, and Sony's answer to the Mario and Sonic question was a fun, straightforward, graphically impressive platformer that smartly played it relatively safe in terms of 3D movement, but still managed to feel next-gen and fresh. It was exactly what Sony needed. And look, if I was discovering Crash as a kid via this demo, there would be nothing stopping me getting this eventually, so smart move including it here. The next edition, and what an edition it is, it's Wipeout 2097, aka Wipeout XL in non-50Hz regions. One of my favorite racers of all time, and not only is this a great upgrade to the original Wipeout, improving on pretty much every aspect, but this demo is also a great upgrade to the original Wipeout demo. Not only do we get double the number of laps with a whopping 2 this time around, the demo also lets us get a taste of the menus where we can choose from 4 different crafts as well as 2 different speed classes, and since the game doesn't kick you out when you're finished, you can pretty much enjoy Wipeout 2097 to your heart's content. Well, as long as you don't mind racing exclusively on Garda Europa. Wipeout 3 would also see future demos similar to this one that give you even more juicy content, but sadly it's a game that was a bit too late to make the Demo 1 series, but you know, any excuse to talk about Wipeout 3 is a good one, and same goes for Ballistic NG, which is a cool, low-price indie love letter to Wipeout, and I play it on my Steam Deck all the time, and you should too, so yeah, if you like Wipeout, make sure to check that shit out. Next up, continuing what I've now realized is a very racing game heavy list of editions, is Destruction Derby 2, or Destruction Derby 2. Look, whichever way I say it is gonna make somebody mad, so I've always found the best way to do things is just to upset everybody equally. Sadly, this is another demo in the vein of Total NBA 96, where we get to see the game in-engine,
but we don't get to play it. Instead, we are greeted to a rolling demo that shows off the improved, well, pretty much everything in this follow-up. We get a taste of the racing action this time around, and while I still would have preferred to see the arena gameplay, it is always fun watching cars pile up in PS1 form. Also, I enjoyed the little PowerPoint at the end, highlighting all the new perks. You love to see it. Moving on from here, we have another racer and another game from Psygnosis and Destruction Derby devs Reflections, and it's Monster Trucks, aka Thunder Truck Rally in North America, which is kinda like Destruction Derby, but in Monster Trucks, and also not really as good. I played the full version of this game a few times, and while it's an enjoyable enough racer, mostly down to the weird monster truck physics, it never felt as fun or polished as Destruction Derby, and when given the choice between the two, I'd always go Destruction Derby, but hey, who am I to deny the appeal of going around a desert in a monster truck and driving off cliffs? So if that's your thing, it's worth checking out. And yes, it also has a slideshow at the end, Reflections once again delivering the goods. After this, we have our final racing addition to version 4, and it's a good one. The original F1 from Psygnosis and Racing/Geometry Wars Legends Bizarre Creations. The original F1 is really a bit of a stone cold classic and really set the standard for F1 games on the console, featuring a mixture of arcade and simulation modes to give everybody the best of both worlds. And this demo not only lets you check out both gameplay styles, but you can pick from pretty much every car and driver and then race a few laps around Nürburgring, which is really quite generous for a demo, especially compared to what we've seen on the original Demo 1 variant. And hey, we've even got another slideshow. Look how much cool shit is in this thing. Joe Satriani, the Negicon. Come on, what more could you want? And last but certainly not least, we have Die Hard Trilogy. Well, a third of Die Hard Trilogy, Die Hard 2 to be exact. For those unaware, Die Hard Trilogy from Probe Entertainment Software, yes, the Alien Trilogy guys, they made a cool Die Hard game that included 3 separate gameplay styles, each dedicated to one of the Die Hard movies, a third-person shooter for the first, an on-rails light gun shooter for the second, and a driving game where you disarm bombs and horribly injure pedestrians for the third. It was very ambitious for the time, and it was also a huge hit, and this demo right here lets us play what I think is probably the single best level contained in the original game, and that's the opening airport mission of Die Hard 2, which is absolutely insane. As a rail shooter, the game is nothing too special, but it has this almost unrelenting pace, and the number of weird arcadey flourishes and sheer number of things you can shoot and interact with made this demo one of my most played back when I was a kid. It's just so silly, and that music is low-key a Christmas banger too. I have respect for any track that manages to make Jingle Bells work in a gunfight. So yeah, as you can see, a pretty substantial number of inclusions here, and with some of the best value demos we've seen so far. I mean, we've got Tekken 2, Ridge Racer, Crash. There's so much variety on this disc, and outside of maybe Tomb Raider, you've got the perfect lineup to really showcase the console's strengths at this point in time. This point of time, of course, being 1996, an iconic year when 2 became 1. And if I had to pick one game to get from the inclusions here, it's pretty tough actually. All the games featured on this disc are kind of early classics, but I really did love this Die Hard Trilogy demo as a kid, so what the heck? Let's pick that. Oh yeah, the movies section. Well, sadly this time we have lost the net with the woman on the bus. but we have gained a real-life video game, Revolution Software's classic Broken Sword, which was published by Sony over here in Europe and was also a pretty popular game. And honestly, with trailers like this, I'm not surprised. I mean, look at this clown. His moves are crazy.
As George, you are thrown into the arms of intrigue as you uncover a sinister collusion which could turn the world upside down. Embark upon a trailblazing exploration across Europe and the Middle East, where the people you meet weave riddles around you. Who are the new breed of savage warriors? Who were the Templar Knights? This is clandestine. This is arcane. This is Broken Sword. The Shadow of the Templars.
Anyway, that was version 4, and after 4 comes the number 5, the final version in the cool as shit era, and also the one that is the most important to me, because this was the disc I had as a kid, and considering how common this disc is online, I have a feeling a lot of you have a soft spot for this one too. Oh, Demo 1 version 5, my beloved. Yes, you're pretty much the exact same aesthetically as the last 2 versions, but you are what introduced me to this opening, these sick menus, this typeface, the music, an ominous dinosaur, and also an ominous manta ray. This right here was the disc that rewired my brain, and I'm gonna say for the better. I mean, jury's still out on that one, but hey, I think it's pretty great. Luckily, I do have the packaging for this one, and as far as I know, this is the beginning of the red sleeve era, or for some of you, the mysterious purple sleeve era, which isn't actually that mysterious. Basically, the original red version of this sleeve featured a misprint stating Formula 197 was included as a playable demo, which sadly it is not, because seriously, that game fucking rules. But yeah, the print error led to the demo getting a reprint to address the issue, and these came in a purple sleeve with no sign of F197, but no matter which color you have, the contents of the disc remain the same, and this time we get a taste of what 97 has in store for PAL Land via 8 brand new demos, the first of which, and probably one of the console's most iconic games, is Abe's Odyssey. And you know, as somebody going from a Sega Mega Drive to a PlayStation, whose gaming experience up until this point has mostly been playing stuff like Sonic and Sparkster, seeing this opening for the first time, it just melted my brain.
This is Rupture Farms. They say it's the biggest meat processing plant on Oddworld. That's me. My name is Abe. I used to work here. Well, I was really a slave, like all the others. Then I learned they were gonna turn us into lunch. That's when I knew I had to escape. So, get me out of here! And help me rescue the others.
Remember what I said about the power of vibes? This game has a vibe. Just this incredibly dark and oppressive yet mystical, magical game. Deeply depressing and also full of hope. I had no idea what to make of this as a 6-year-old, but regardless, I was captivated all the same. I mean, everything from Abe popping out on the menu to this screen where you can test all of Abe's iconic voice lines and sound effects. I know people who have only ever experienced Abe via this demo disc, people who barely have played games in their lives, and if you mention Abe's Odyssey, they almost instinctively start whipping out a follow me or a hello. It was just something that sticks with you forever.
Hello. Stay here. Follow me. Stay here. Follow me. Follow me. Follow me.
This is great banter. It really is.
The gameplay will also likely stick in your head forever, especially if you're not used to the cinematic platformer style a la OG Prince of Persia, where you have to be very careful and deliberate with your movements or face the consequences. And sometimes if you even do what it tells you to, you might also face consequences too, and by that I mean extreme guilt. While the gameplay might be a bit antiquated and unforgiving nowadays, I think the art direction and sound design, as well as the sheer originality functionality of this thing just wowed people back in '97, and from that point on, Abe was another face synonymous with the PlayStation over here in PAL land, and both it and its 1998 follow-up Abe's Exodus would go on to be very big hits, as should be the case for any game with a dedicated fart button and the ability to make bird portals. I really wish I could do that.
Okay.
Next up, we have a Disney game, and it's none other than Hercules from Eurocom, or to give it its full official title, Disney's action game featuring Hercules from Eurocom, and also published by Sony in Europe, hence why it's here. Sony would go on to publish quite a lot of Disney games over here in Europe, and that's why nearly every PlayStation owner from here has played Tarzan or A Bug's Life at least once in their life, and the same is probably true for Hercules, a demo that came at the exact perfect time in my life, which is to say I very recently seen Hercules in the cinema, and it's still one of my all-time favorite Disney movies. I mean, we got Danny DeVito, a great gospel soundtrack, James Woods getting punched in the face. What more could you want? As for the game itself, it's a fun little 2.5D platformer with a mixture of sprites and 3D environments, and honestly it's a game I still really quite like the look of today. As for the gameplay, it's something I still quite enjoy, but even as a kid I thought the movement here felt a little bit floaty, and some of the invincible enemies that keep annoying you definitely let you know this thing was made in Europe, but it impressed me enough as a kid to pick up the platinum version a little while later, and it is one of my favorite Disney games on the platform. It sure ain't no Toy Story 2, but hey, very little is.
Hercules! Hercules!
Next up, we have our token Ridge Racer appearance for this version, and it's Rage Racer, the third entry in the series and one of my personal favorites. Sadly, this is another demo which is really quite limited in terms of content, letting you race just a single lap around Mythical Coast, which takes a little under 2 minutes to do, but on the bright side, they have added some of the game's menus into the demo, and there's nothing stopping you from sitting at the course select screen and enjoying the music, which, believe me, I most certainly did. Now, Ridge Racer demos would get much better down the line, with Type 4 featuring a 3-lap demo that plays a medley of the game's soundtrack throughout it. And if you know Type 4's soundtrack, you know that is a very smart move. As for Rage Racer though, mid-demo, but great game and great soundtrack, so do check it out. Keeping up the racing game theme, next up we have some first-party Sony titles, the first of which is Rapid Racer, also known as Turbo Prop Racing in North America, which is a terrible, terrible name. This is Sony's attempt at an arcade boat racing game, one that is notably one of the few racers on the console to be fully playable at 60 frames per second. Well, 50 frames per second here in the PAL version, but still, look how smooth it is, and to be honest, it really is kind of a showstopper visually in '97, a very colourful and sharp looking game if I do say so myself. Sadly, I can't say the same for the boat's movement and feel, which is a little bit all over the place thanks to the very odd and unpredictable water physics, but if you can get used to it, there is a fun little racer in here. More than anything though, I always remember this demo because the song featured in it is a bit of a banger. Also, this spider boat, I don't know why, but I thought this spider boat was really, really cool as a kid, and I could never beat it by the end of the 3 laps, but still, a fun and oddly memorable demo, all the same. Moving on from boats to German cars, here's Porsche Challenge, another first-party Sony release and another very graphically impressive title for 97, although this one is running at the more respectable PAL Classic 25 frames per second. But when you see how dense the environments are and how good-looking everything is, you really can't be too mad. Also, this is the only game where I accidentally hit select while playing, so pour one out for me. Honestly, I never really thought too much about this game when I was a kid, and that's probably because it was the most normal of the racers available on the disc, but playing it here, this really is quite nice. It took me a little while to get used to the steering, and some of the camera views are a little claustrophobic for my liking, but overall it's another fun demo, and another that gives you 3 laps worth of gameplay if you're good enough to beat the timer. But hey, if any game is willing to give me a soundtrack filled with funky chase music, then I will get good enough. Moving on from a double header of Sony goodness, next up we have 2 Psygnosis titles, and the first is Overboard, aka Shipwreckers in North America, a top-down pirate shooter adventure puzzle thing. Honestly, there's still very few games quite like it. You basically move a little boat through levels in search of treasure and secrets, dodging giant buzzsaws, raiding ports, and firing rockets at pirates, and also desperately trying not to get set on fire. I said it once and I'll say it again, never has there been a game where getting set on fire sucks as much as this one. Overall though, the demo is one of the easy highlights of this disc. It's nearly 20 minutes long, full of different weapons and enemies to take out, features some great visuals and music, and it's just a weird little game. I went on to play the full version of this many years later, and it's even weirder, but also incredibly difficult too. Either way, if you're into pirates and yet to check out Overboard, this demo here is a great way to kill 20 minutes, and also a lot of pirates, and sadly, parrots too. Onto our final Psygnosis title, we have Life Force Tenka, aka Codename Tenka in North America, a game that scared the shit out of me when I was a kid. You see, I had never played an FPS before, and I had no idea how to control this thing, and immediately this game sends some robots and weird creepy shit at me, and I was out of the room, let me tell you. And even when I did muster up the courage to learn how to play this thing, I always somehow ended up panicking due to the number of enemies and inevitably just killed myself in this steam jet. I don't think I've ever actually beaten this demo, to be honest, but I did always come back to it because on a presentation level, it just had a weird way of worming its way into my brain. These very dark industrial environments, this cool transforming gun, the sound effects, the music, all of this is done very well in this thing. And once again for 97, I don't think any FPS on the PlayStation was looking as good and well 3D as this thing was. And of course, years later I would go on to play the full version of this game, and while it is quite fun, it is very much a game that prioritizes presentation over level design. Seriously, this is a game that loves tight corridors, big rooms, and also a lot of backtracking, and oddly enough, all of that is featured in this demo. Seriously, the majority of the demo is running around to disarm bombs, so you better get good at the controls, but even still, shooting stuff with a transforming gun is undeniably fun, and despite scaring me as a kid, I am very nostalgic for the way this game looks and sounds. It is very much what if Psygnosis made a dark industrial FPS on the PlayStation, and for many, that's pretty much the appeal in and of itself.
Rapid fire.
And last but certainly not least, we have Karushi, aka IQ Intelligent Cube, pretty much everywhere else. Yeah, I'm not exactly sure what happened with the name change over here, but here is another first-party Sony title, and one of, if not the most famous puzzle games on this console. And this is a game I choose to go last because I want to spend a little extra time on this one, not just because the game is good, which it very much is, but this game is a classic example of what I call a demo game. And by that, I mean it's a game a lot of people have played, know the mechanics of, understand the gameplay, and remember bits and pieces about, but very few of them have actually played the full game. And this is a trend that seems to curse what I consider the big 3 puzzle games on the console. The first being IQ, the second being Devil Dice, which sadly doesn't appear in any of the Demo 1 discs, and the third being a game which does eventually appear in Demo 1, and if you know your PAL demo discs, you can probably guess what it's gonna be. But for now, here's IQ, a puzzle game about a little guy removing blocks that are tumbling towards him while being trapped in a black void. It also tests your IQ, which is pretty nice. The goal here is to clear as many blocks as you can in as few turns as you can by highlighting areas on the stage and then activating these highlighted areas as blocks move over them. You've got normal blocks, bad blocks, and green blocks that clear everything in a square around them. It's a very simple game to pick up and also quite tough to master, but from the gameplay to the vibe, it is absolutely one of the most unique puzzlers out there. And speaking of the vibe, one of the most interesting things about this demo is how the vibe here is almost completely different from the retail release due to the demo's lack of music. And look, as we know, demos removing background music, often due to space limitations, wasn't that uncommon, but the way it kind of transforms the feel of IQ here is pretty crazy. This game without music just feels so empty and ominous. Like, all you hear are the sound of the blocks that are moving towards you, the bleeps of the traps, your tiny little footsteps. It's just kind of unsettling in a way. And then when you hear the giant crash of the blocks at the end of the arena falling apart and your play space getting smaller and more cramped, and the panic starts to increase, and then your life flashes before your eyes until the inevitable happens. The demo ends with this blood-curdling scream as you fall into the empty void, never to be seen again. Well, until you boot the demo up for another go, but still, what the fuck? Now, if we move over to the retail version of IQ, instead of ominous silence, we get this lovely, relaxing orchestral soundtrack that is absolutely perfect for a puzzle game, and now the whole vibe is completely transformed. And you know, the full version of this thing, fantastic game. It got multiple follow-ups on the PS1, PS2, and PSP, and it's also available on the PS5 as a PlayStation Classic, and you should play it ASAP. But the differences between this retail release and the demo version, simply from the lack of music, is crazy. And thanks to the widespread availability of this demo, this is how most people know this game. Scary, trapped in the void, block game. Honestly, between this shit, Abe's Odyssey, and Life Force Tenka, I was freaked the fuck out by this demo disc. Sure, we got things for kids like Disney's Action Game by Disney featuring Disney's Hercules, the movie, the game, but then you've got these 3 games unlike anything I had played in my life. This is the kind of shit that sticks with you. And look, most kids back in the 90s weren't getting new games all that often, so these demo discs, they basically became like regular games you would play in your rotation. I mean, I've gone through every single game in this version of Demo 1 so many times that I know these demos better than most full games that I've played in my lifetime. And while this lineup of games might not be the strongest when you think about the PlayStation brand or even PlayStation in '97, there's just something about them that really stuck with me. And the nice thing about a pack-in demo is that loads of other people out there got to experience this weird shit too, and I know it stuck with yous as well. If I had to pick just one game from this lineup to get, I really think Abe does stand out as something different and otherworldly, and is the definite star of this demo disc. But in all fairness, all the games here are very much worth checking out. But hang on, before we finish up, we also have 2 new additions in the movies section, and these I have watched a whole bunch of times. The first of which is a trailer for Soul Blade, the first game in Namco's Soul series, with a trailer so good, it also eventually made me pick up a platinum copy of this thing, and I'm glad I did. It is easily one of the best fighters on the console, but beyond making this game look really cool, it also features the game's opening theme, Edge of Soul, which is one of the best video game songs ever. So who are we to resist our new weapons-based fighting game overlords?
Searching for all stars.
As for the other video, it's for a game called Roscoe McQueen, a firefighting platformer which I always wanted to try as a kid because, you know, it was a firefighting platformer and what kid wouldn't like that? But despite being published by Sony over here, I never saw it in the wild, although I did get a chance to play it many years later, and it plays exactly how it looks. A kinda janky but rather endearing platformer with some fun firefighting mechanics. Think of it kind of like the British version of Blasto, an average Sony published action platformer starring a blonde-haired guy. I'm sure that'll make sense to most of you, and if it doesn't, you know, don't worry about it. So yeah, that was the second generation of Demo 1, and even taking nostalgia out of the equation, this is objectively the coolest era of the disc, and probably one of the most memorable and aesthetically pleasing demo discs in existence. While version 5 is of course my favorite, I think objectively the lineup in version 4 with Crash, Tekken 2, Ridge Racer and Wipeout 2097, as well as some fun wildcards like Die Hard Trilogy, make it the best version of Demo 1 we've seen so far. And I say so far because soon 1 is gonna blow it out of the water. And since we're speaking about water, welcome to Demo 1 version 6 and the final era of Demo 1. The Ocean era, and one that I know a lot of people are also very nostalgic for. I mean, Orla walked by my office when I was playing this thing and let out a holy shit when she's seen the menu, and that's kind of the reaction I expect. We're back with a brand new style, a brand new logo, some very similar packaging, and also a new opening, which we really do love to see. Look, it may not be the opening and track that I grew up with, but I cannot deny the PlayStation-ness of it all. Good times all around. Now, the major changes in this version is the design itself. It seems to follow a similar format to what the PAL official PlayStation magazine demos used at the time, which is to say it's got some cool music, trippy backgrounds, and a literal rotation of games and videos to get through. The logo this time around is a little less alien and mysterious, and probably my least favorite of the variants out there, but I do still think it's pretty damn cool and certainly does the job. Overall, this era of Demo 1 has a style that I'm quite fond of, but I am a little sad the more bespoke designs used in Era 1 and 2 didn't make a comeback, and even more disappointingly, this era no longer includes the tech or VCD options, which to me at least are like the hallmarks of Demo 1. Like, I can't imagine people not getting to experience the Dino or Manta or the scary faces appearing in their TV. Actually, to be honest, people probably turned out much better without seeing this shit. But in spite of my issues, it's still hard not to love this trippy ocean vibe they've got going on here, and the music complements it perfectly. This track was composed by a fellow called Jason Page, who alongside Harry Holmwood was responsible for a lot of the music you heard in the demos over here in PAL land. I actually went to a gig in London a little while back to see him play a live set alongside a bunch of other PS1 adjacent DJs, and That was unreal. Sadly, the only footage I have of this event was somebody playing Ridge Racer Type 4 on a little TV that was housed in the DJ booth, which, to be fair, should tell you all you need to know about that night. But yeah, shout out to Jason. You can actually pick up a copy of that very same set over on his Bandcamp, and if you like PS1 demo music, and I know a lot of you do, you should definitely check it out. Anyway, that's all the new stuff covered. Let's take a look at the area this demo disc really shines, the games, because we're into 1998, which is easily one of, if not the strongest years in PlayStation history. You got to look at 95 and 96, where Sony was really building the console's brand and rounding out the library, 97 when Sony began to dig its claws in and capitalize on the console's momentum, and then by 98, it pretty much solidified itself as the 5th generation's top dog, and the hits just kept coming, some of which are featured on this disc, although truthfully this 6th version of Demo 1 is kind of like a baby Pokemon version of the next one, which is to say once again it's just the same but better. But still, let's see what games and videos we've got on offer. First up in the games section, we've got a big one, and it's the original Gran Turismo from Polyphony Digital, then known as Poly Studios, aka the MotorToon Grand Prix guys. You might laugh, but seriously, MotorToon Grand Prix was the Japanese launch game to be, and this did eventually lead to the most successful racing game series of all time, so shout out to MotorToon Grand Prix. That's right, it's the game that started it all. Gran Turismo, the real driving simulator, a racing game for car freaks made by car freaks. Its focus on realistic car control, sounds, pretty much everything car related really made this an immediate hit with racing game fans all over the world. And over here in Europe, we fucking love a racing game, so pretty much everybody had this thing. Also, it is the best-selling PS1 game of all time, a pretty tough accolade to get when your competition is Final Fantasy VII, another Gran Turismo game, and also Frogger, a game that everybody had for some reason. Anyway, here's the Gran Turismo demo, and another pretty generous one. It lets you do a single 2-lap race around Clubman Stage Route 5, but also choose from 3 different difficulties and 4 different cars, and a nice selection of cars too, I might add. You can even change paint jobs, which I always think is very important. A thing present here that I also really appreciate about demos is that you can scroll ahead to see what is available in the retail release, but not here in the demo. The whole look but don't touch method never failed to pique my interest in a game. Anyway, once we're into the game itself, yeah, even today, Gran Turismo is one hell of a PlayStation game. And keep in mind, while this didn't release over here until 98, this was a 97 release over in Japan, and it is no surprise that it blew other racers out of the water, not just in terms of driving gameplay, but the amount of cars and content within. The only complaint I have with this demo is that once again it lacks any music during the races, and that only bothers me because I know the original Gran Turismo has a banging soundtrack, but still, if you got a PlayStation for the first time in 98 and played this thing, I can't imagine many not going out of their way to pick up Gran Turismo, an all-timer for sure. And speaking of all-timers, here's Tekken 3 from Namco, the best-selling Tekken game and fighting game on the PlayStation, and with a demo like this, I am not surprised. This Tekken 3 demo takes everything in the Tekken 2 demo and makes it even better. That means, yes, we do have the full Tekken 3 opening, which, yes, I will play for you in full right away. I feckin' love this shit. This demo once again features 2 playable characters, newcomers to the series Xiao Yu and Eddie Gordo, and look, I personally think it is a masterstroke to include Eddie as a playable character, because whether you've played a fighting game before or not, if you hit them buttons, Eddie is gonna do some cool shit, and probably also win you the fight. And if you want people to like your game, you gotta make people think they're good at it, because winning is fun, and my god is it fun to play as Eddie. Better still, the demo also included a random selection of stages, CPU opponents, background music during the fights, and even the cool Tekken 3 attract mode screen, which we've all seen a few times in our lives, I'm sure. So yeah, a perfectly curated, bite-sized demo that highlights exactly why Tekken 3 was such a big hit back in the day. It's just cool as shit, always was, and always will be. After this, we have another demo favorite from '98, and it's Medieval from Sony's Cambridge studio. Another PlayStation classic and my personal favorite Halloween game of all time. And while this game is a little jankier and rougher around the edges than some of Sony's output during this time, there's a real charm and likability to this game and its main character Sir Daniel Fortescue and his quest for redemption after he was killed immediately by an arrow at the start of a big battle. Fun times. Now, I've played the full version of this game many times, but I definitely played this demo even more. I mean, this gargle head that says, "Ah, Sir Daniel Fortescue, see?" has been stuck in my head for over 20 years, and I promise you it is never leaving. This is another well-paced and content-rich demo. You get to play around and learn the basics in the crypt tutorial, and then experience a slice of the game's opening level in the graveyard, where you chop up zombies with your big sword and also throw knives at them to your heart's content. Although, to be honest, I'm not too sure if Dan has a functioning heart or a heart at all for that matter, but I think if he did have one, it would be pretty full by now. Another thing that I quite like about this demo is that the Chalice and Hall of Heroes mechanic makes an appearance. You see, in the full game, if you kill enemies in a level, it fills this Chalice meter, and if you manage to fill it up and also seek out the Chalice hidden in the level, you can unlock a new weapon at the end by visiting the Hall of Heroes. It's one of my favorite things about the game, and them letting you get a brief glimpse of this mechanic in action within the demo was a smart choice, I feel. Luckily, Medieval is very easy to play nowadays, either in PS1, PSP remake, or PS4 remake form, and the second game is also recently out on PS5 too, and is even better than the first in my opinion. So if you're yet to try either of these games and love yourself some Tim Burton style horror, Medieval is an easy recommendation. And last but certainly not least, that's right, there's only 4 games on this disc, it's Kula World from Game Design Sweden, a game I consider the king of demo games. Also known as Rollaway or Kula Quest in Japan, this is a game I associate so strongly with demo discs and also the PAL PlayStation identity, I guess, because as far as I know, this is quite obscure in certain parts of the world, certainly over in North America at least, but here in Europe, Kula World is kind of an icon, just down to how weird and memorable it was, and that it also featured on like every PlayStation demo disc for quite a while. I didn't know a single person who didn't play and really liked the Kula World demo, and to this day back in Ireland, you can still get a visceral reaction out of somebody simply by mentioning the words Kula World or the weird PS1 beach ball game. And luckily, quite recently, I came across footage of an Irish person's reaction to hearing the words Kula World in real time, so I definitely know I'm not crazy.
Kula World? Does that ring any bells for anyone?
Oh my god, yeah, I love Kula World.
All right,
hell yeah.
This is Kula World, baby.
So what's the deal with Kula World? Well, it's a 3D movement puzzler starring a ball. Kula literally means ball in Swedish, and I learned this in the most efficient way possible by using Google Lens to translate the Japanese manual into English, which told me Kula is the Swedish word for ball. So yeah, Ball Quest. Now, if you're thinking this is like Monkey Ball or Marble Madness, it's not like that at all. This is a full-on puzzle platformer with grid-based movement, and the goal of each level is to find a number of keys and simply reach an exit. And while it starts easy enough, the game soon introduces you to its big gimmick, the ability to stick and rotate around the blocks, turning this into a game where you really need to think about your positioning and movement within a 3D space. And it's honestly so simple and satisfying that it's hard to put down. But beyond that, the thing that always captivated me about Cooler World is just how trippy this thing is. I mean, it's one thing to have a puzzle game where you're literally rotating the level around you, but when the level is a bunch of shapes floating in a colorful desert void with a banging beat in the background, I don't know, this is just like peak PlayStation to me. I love this stuff so much. I honestly think between Cooler World, IQ, and Devil Dice, you have three of the coolest, most original puzzle games of all time, and the fact they all seem to take place in this nondescript void just makes them even more mysterious. Now, the reason I think Cooler World is the king of demo games, I mean, beyond the demo and game being really good, is that once again, this is a game that tons of people have played and remember fondly, but even less people seem to have played or owned the full game than IQ. In fact, in my entire life, I have seen one single copy of Cooler World in the wild, and that was in a clearance bin in an Extravision in like 2008, and I had a broken case and no manual for €5, and my stuck-up collector ass at the time was like, nope, that's not good enough for me. And wouldn't you believe it, years later, Cooler World is one of the most expensive PAL releases on the console to buy physically. I mean, I've seen the disc alone go for over 200 quid, let alone a complete copy. So that really does go to show you how dumb an idiot I was. I honestly think the prevalence of this demo and the seeming scarcity of the retail release has somehow ballooned this thing into being one of the most sought after and expensive PAL releases, which is wild, right? And you know what? After playing the full game myself, yeah, it's easily one of the best and most original puzzle games on the console. It's vibey as shit. It's got tons of new gimmicks and mechanics as the game rolls on. I mean, it was so good, I ended up buying the cheaper but still relatively pricey Japanese version of the game called Cooler Quest, which, let's be fair, has by far the best cover and disc art of the versions available. And Cooler Quest also seemingly was the original name of the game, if this beta version included in an old registered user's demo is to be believed. Yeah, demos just sometimes have old beta versions of games sometimes. Look, this very same demo has beta medieval. That's pretty fun. But yeah, for years, in spite of never playing the full retail release, I always remembered and thought of Cooler World fondly thanks to this demo. In fact, I was almost certain a beach ball would make an appearance in Astrobot. That is how much I think of this thing as a Sony icon, which may sound crazy to some of you, but hey, this is PAL Region brain rot, and I know some of you feel the same way too. Hand on heart, I legitimately think there is no puzzle game from this generation that makes better use of the move to 3D space than this one. So definitely do give it a try, or cross your fingers Sony eventually adds it to the PSN, which they absolutely should. But better still, to my delight, Cooler World has returned from the grave in indie game form thanks to a new title called Axes, which is essentially Cooler World but with a vaporwave aesthetic, and honestly, I can think of no better duo. Now, full disclosure, one of the developers of this game is a buddy of mine, and I've been paying very close attention to this project ever since he told me he was making a spiritual successor to Cooler World, and as Cooler World's #1 soldier, I was locked in. I even got to make a music track for this game, which was pretty incredible. It's called Sploder under my musical pseudonym, DJ Gex 3D. I actually have a bunch of tracks which you can find under that name if you're so inclined, but it was a real honor to make some music for the game and also be featured alongside lots of other great composers, and for it to be in a Cooler World inspired game is just the icing on the cake.
Three, two, one.
And obviously, while I'm a bit biased here, I promise you, if you're a Cooler World fan, Axes is exactly the game you're looking for. It retains the classic gameplay, but also makes a few changes that I think improve on Cooler World, because the original is a surprisingly difficult game, often down to the timer mechanic, which pretty much always makes you feel under pressure. But Axis changes things up by removing the time limit, allowing the levels to be a bit bigger and more exploratory, leading to some really fun and mind-bending puzzles, and also a lot less stress. It also adds a bunch of new gimmicks too, like gravity switching and 180 turning, so the gameplay is familiar, but also very much feels like an expansion of the stuff seen in Cooler World. And look, if you like liquid D&B, breakbeats, and vaporwave aesthetics, this is another indie game you should definitely check out, especially if you're looking for something chill on your Steam Deck. Just like Ballistic NG, I will leave a Steam link to the game in the description below. And as a PlayStation puzzle fan, I call out to all the indie developers out there. There is a great market for revitalizing puzzle games that Sony has just forgotten about. So if anybody out there wants to make an indie version of IQ or Devil Dice, I'm just saying, my wallet is ready. So yeah, those are the 4 games included in version 6 of Demo 1, a small but powerful selection, I think you'll agree. If I had to pick just one, well, knowing what I know now about Cooler World, I would have picked that up when I had the chance, but otherwise the winner here is probably Tekken 3. Great game, great music, great opening, great demo. You'll love to see it. But to round things out, we've also got videos to watch, and I will say I do enjoy the VHS icons and menus they whipped up for these. Very nice. First up, we have a trailer for the biggest PlayStation hit of '98, and that's Konami's Metal Gear Solid. Certainly not the first game in the series, but the one that made the series a household name. This trailer is classic Kojima, I feel, very deliberately shot and edited to make the game seem as cool as possible, and it mostly does this thanks to a bunch of interesting camera angles you can't access in the real game, but it does make for a fun trailer. Also at the very end, they show off a whole bunch of C4 exploding all across Shadow Moses Island, which is just such a funny way to end the trailer, and God bless Kojima for it. Next up, we have a duo of '98 platforming classics that everybody knows, and first up, it's Crash Bandicoot 3 Warped. Yes, somehow Demo 1 managed to skip over Crash 2 in its lifetime, which is a shame, but here we have a video for Warped, the one where you get to time travel a whole bunch, and I've always quite liked this video since it showed off a lot of the game's areas and also had some really fun music, so it was quite nice and nostalgic too. See you again. And speaking of nostalgic, here's a video for the original Spyro the Dragon, which released the same year as Crash, and in many ways these two games felt like a changing of the guard in a way. Crash 3 was the final Crash platform on the console before he took up a career in kart racing and pogo sticking, and from that point on, Spyro was really the go-to mascot platformer from '99 onwards, and if anything, the biggest letdown of this disc is that they both only feature Crash 3 and Spyro in video form, but hey, Spyro in video form is still pretty great. But wait, there's still one new thing to check out in the video zone. Spice World, a game where you make bad remixes of Spice Girls tracks with proto-Funko Pop versions of the Spice Girls. It is legitimately a dreadful game, but I do really like the way it looks. It is delightfully 1998, let's just put it that way. And hey, even in spite of the game's issues, I do love a bit of the old Spice Girls. I am only human after all. So yeah, all in all, this is a nice disc with some very strong games, but it's a bit underwhelming content-wise, especially when you consider Sony's amazing 98 lineup, and I think Sony realized that too. So to rectify that, Sony would deliver us one final version of Demo 1, once again in 98, and they sure did go out with a bang. Here it is, version 7 of Demo 1, the very last of its kind, and also essentially just an upgrade of the previous disc. Same menu, same song, same opening video, same lack of dinosaur and manta ray, which still hurts, but the good news is that this demo contains everything present in the last version, which was already pretty good, but with a whole bunch of new games too, which I think allows this era of Demo 1 to reach its full 1998 potential. And let's dive right in with the first of our new additions, Crash Bandicoot 3 Warped. Yes, this game has seen an upgrade from video form to playable demo form. This demo is similar to the first Crash demo we've seen and lets you play the entirety of a single stage, that being one of the medieval levels from around the middle of the game, if I recall correctly. It's nothing too fancy content-wise, you don't get to see any of the menus or the warp rooms, but it is a nice bite-sized glimpse of the game and shows off all that Crash charm you would come to expect from the series in its PS1 heyday. And I still often flip-flop between Crash 2 and 3 when it comes to deciding my favourite of that era, but Warped is probably the one I have the strongest memories of, and it is always a joy to play. And speaking of joy to play, next up we have a playable demo of Insomniac's Spyro the Dragon, which has also been upgraded from video to playable demo form. And fun fact, if you have the retail version of either of these games, you can input a cheat to play the Crash 3 demo in Spyro and the Spyro demo in Crash 3. That's why I can't disassociate these two series. They've been interlinked from the very beginning. Now, as a kid, I was more of a Crash guy than a Spyro guy, but as an adult, I think I like the Spyro games just that little bit more. I think of this series, especially the 3 PlayStation originals, as my ideal cozy game. Just classic, reliable, well-designed 3D platforming with levels and difficulty that I think veer on the easier side of things without feeling brain dead. But above all else, I just adore the presentation in these games. I mean, no other game on the planet looks or sounds like the 3 PS1 era Spyro the Dragons, and that is absolutely down to the wonderful art direction from Insomniac and the fantastic soundtracks composed by Stuart Copeland, aka the drummer for the fucking Police of all things. If I want to sit down, switch my brain off, kill a few hours and guarantee myself a good time while doing it, I play Spyro the Dragon. And good news, this demo here is a great way to get a taste of that. It lets you run around the opening hub world, talk to some dragons, collect some gems,
make some coins, and love all my friends.
And you can even experience all that in a few levels too. Man, I sure do love collecting gems. It's just a great demo of a great game. And look, I'm sure most, if not all of you, don't need me to tell you how important and influential Spyro and Crash were during this period, but if you've somehow yet to play them, the original trilogy for each is mandatory PlayStation history if you ask me. And then when you're done with them, you can go check out the remastered trilogies, which are also excellent, but don't exactly make the original versions obsolete either. We have shiny HD skies and shiny low poly skies. Each one is magical in its own way. Next up, we have a series that you probably expected to show up sooner in some form or another, but hey, it's better late than never. It's Tomb Raider 3 from Core Design. I'm not sure if Sony or even Core Design knew how big Tomb Raider was going to be back in '96, but Lara Croft was immediately promoted to like the face of the PlayStation over here in Europe. I mean, we had Crash for the kids and Lara for, well, pretty much everybody else. And since the original game was so successful for Core Design, or more importantly, publisher Eidos, it meant that we got a Tomb Raider game pretty much every year for a bit. And here's the third entry, 98's Tomb Raider 3, which shows off the game's newer, less tomby aspects by letting us tear it up inside Area 51. I would imagine if this was your first time playing a Tomb Raider game, getting used to the controls via a demo, and specifically a demo set in a rather unforgiving level, might turn some people off, but it's a pretty fun and action-packed slice of the game, and if you were the type of person to replay demo discs often, you could probably spend a lot of time improving and getting a bit further each time. So while maybe not the best introduction to the Tomb Raider series, it's a pretty fun demo for what it is, and it feels right Lara at least made it onto one of these discs. She absolutely deserves it. After this, we have a game that some of you might be surprised to see show up, and it's Bust a Groove from Metro and Enix, aka Bust a Move over in Japan, which you might also know as the name we sometimes use for Puzzle Bobble in the West, hence the name change to Bust a Groove. Video games are a fucking nightmare. This dancing rhythm game was published by Sony over here in PAL land, and I actually recall it being pushed pretty heavily in magazines at the time. I even have an old promo poster of it up here in my office because my addiction to games for sick freaks knows no bounds. Now check out this opening. Lovely stuff. Anyway, here's Bust a Groove, a rhythm fighting game, I guess, where you engage in a dance battle against opponents by tapping buttons to the beat until one of you eventually loses. It's a lot of fun. This game features 2 playable characters and 1 stage and 1 song. Now, the way this game plays may not seem immediately obvious when booting it up, and I imagine a lot of people out there failed miserably their first time playing this thing, but the game pretty much just needs you to input a highlighted face button on every 4th beat, and the arrow inputs that appear as your combo increases, well, you just gotta input these before hitting the 4th beat. The better you do, the more complicated the combos, and the longer the combos, the sicker your dance moves will be. Throw in some weird, memorable characters, some great music, and a whole bunch of style, and hell yeah, you got Bust a Groove. Sadly, I don't think the game sold to Sony's expectations over here, as we never got the follow-up, which is also pretty damn good, but I still have a lot of love for the original, and if you like rhythm games, I think this one is a no-brainer. And the very last demo we'll be looking at today, and I can think of no better demo. It's Tombi, aka Tomba everywhere else. Tombi from Whoopee Camp, spearheaded by Ghost and Goblins creator Takura Fujiwara, is a 2.5D action platformer role-playing Metroidvania kind of thing. I had honestly never played anything like it at the time. I mean, equipment, missions, jumping on pigs, it was absolutely wild. Now this game is infamous for featuring one of the most generous demos you will see on the PlayStation, letting you play nearly an hour's worth of the game before you'll see your end the first time through, and that's longer than many PlayStation games take to beat in their entirety. I mean, you could beat Yugo Frog Fighters 4 whole times or play 1 whole Tomba demo, and believe me, you should pick the Tomba demo. It's probably a testament to this game's quality that Sony decided to publish such a 2D heavy game on the console, especially in '98, but hey, there is still a lot of 3D stuff here too, so maybe that won him over, and thanks to the length of this demo, it'll likely win you over too, giving you plenty of time to really dig into the gameplay and systems and give you a taste of what the full game has in store, but still leaving you craving more by the end. And look, any game that lets you jump on pigs and toss them into the void, that's a winner in my book. Luckily, if you want to play the full thing, it is easier than ever nowadays thanks to the recent special edition released on modern platforms. But as for the demo, this is easily one of the quintessential PlayStation demos, and I think the perfect addition to cap off a very strong list of games in Demo 1 version 7. Just banger after banger after banger, and easily, in my opinion, the strongest lineup of games we've seen in this lineup of discs in terms of star power and also demo quality. If I had to pick just one game to get from the additions here, I mean, it's like choosing a favorite child at this rate, but I'm gonna say Tomba just for the sheer audacity of making a demo that good. Seriously, do check it out, and the second game too for that matter. It's also really cool. So that was a look at every version of Demo 1, and I don't know about you, but that was a fun little trip down memory lane for myself, and a nice snapshot of what Sony was pushing in PAL land from the console's launch until 1998. Now, there were plenty of discs that continued this lineage in some form or another, including a whole bunch of registration discs, and also notably some PS1 themed discs to coincide with that console's release. And in these discs, you can also similarly track the releases from '99 up until the early noughties. And while the range of demos included in these discs range from fantastic to not great, the visual design and layout of these demos do take a notable hit compared to the Demo 1 lineage, and by the noughties it got very bad. I mean, I'm not even a Comic Sans hater, but this is rough. And while there are plenty of demo discs out there that I think eclipse the Demo 1 lineage in terms of games lineup, these 7 discs are still, in my opinion, the quintessential PAL demo disc experience. When it comes to the PlayStation, the games are important, sure, but the style, vibe, and culture surrounding the original PlayStation is a big part of the experience as well, and I think no demo discs really capture the magic and feel of that era as well as these ones do. It was a gateway to so many new experiences, from gaming to music to graphic design, fear, a whole bunch of stuff. And one of my favorite things has always been discovering other people who love this shit as much as me, and the beauty of packing discs means loads of people did. For a time, if you had a PlayStation, you had a version of this disc, and it's this really nice shared experience that us PAL gamers have. It's one of our pieces of the culture. Every region's got their own. North America has the Underground, PlayStation Picks, and Pizza Hut, and we've got peak EU PlayStation propaganda, where it's not just about the games, it's the vibe that surrounds them. And Demo 1 is the vibe. Anyway, that's the video. A little more loosey-goosey than some I've put out, but I thought I'd try to do something fun and nostalgic that lets me play a few games that I usually don't get to talk about here on the channel. And well, demo discs, there ain't much more fun and nostalgic than that. As I mentioned before, there's so many fun and interesting topics left to cover when it comes to PS1 demo discs, and we'll get to them in time, I'm sure. But for now, I need to give a big shout out to my lovely patient patrons who help make videos like this possible, including fine folks like Alan Caslin, Alias McDoe, Bleeding Cart, Callow Mellow, Clumbums, Danny, Dave Nolan, Disc Kun, the mascot for the Famicom Disk System, Doma, Etchy Gamer, Fergal O'Hagan, Fragile Traveller, Gigazol, Globe99, Icelight, Jared Bynum, Jumbo81, Karuran, Kyle Winter, Life Sword, Meester Papala, Moomin Biscuit, Trans Rights Are Human Rights, Mr. the Joshmon, Ms. Cat, My Pal Robot, Nathan McMullen, Nick Norman, Richard Kramer, SN Kierstead, Cyeno, Sean Slater, Spectre117, The Friendly Chocoball Bird, Kiyoro-chan, Tolkoto, and Will Savoy, who have all subscribed at the Fan++ tier. And last but not least, I'd like to give a huge thank you to you at home or wherever you are for watching this video. I sure do hope you enjoyed it. I'll be back real soon with some more PlayStation related rambly internet man videos, but until then, take care and look after yourselves. See ya!